Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to On the Bright Line podcast, Tales from Recovering Food Addicts from the perspective of a physician, a therapist, and an off-the-wall storyteller. We are not affiliated or endorsed by Brightline Eating, and all content presented in this podcast represents our personal opinions and does not represent medical, nutritional, or psychological professional advice.
Well, hello, and welcome to On the Bright Line podcast. Robin and I are here with the beautiful, wonderful, extravagant, extraordinary Linnea. Like how
Wow,
many
thanks.
adjectives? I know how many adjectives can I get in there? No, I'm gonna just, preface this interview a little bit with I'm very, very excited to talk to Linnea today, and she knows this because she has some passions in life that kind of line up really synchronously. I can't, whatever. With me and my life and the fact that I'm a mom to littles and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to get into this with her today. But before we get into that conversation, which is I feel like is like healthy family eating, which is probably going to be the vibe of this conversation today. I want to learn more about Linnea, and I want you guys to learn more about Linnea. So Linnea, can you tell us your story, your BLE journey and all that jazz?
I'd love to. Yes. Yeah. So I was a normal sized child. I know, we all have our own stories and some people come being overweight children. I was a normal sized child. I didn't have a perfect relationship with food, but I was a normal sized child and graduated high school being in my right size body, and went to college, and those little things that had been slightly irregular in my eating really came to a head. And instead of gaining the fresh 15, I gained the freshman 30. And so went my quickly after that, increased my weight just year after year after year, stress after stress, new jobs, graduating college, all of those things. So I really yo-yoed. Like I was an expert dieter. I tried all of the things. I did all of the exercises and all of the diets. And when I moved back home, I met my husband and I was at my heaviest, and he loved me anyways, right? Wonderful. But then I had infertility. And so like I knew to be able to get pregnant, I would need to lose weight. So I worked hard. I went paleo and went completely sugar-free, just like no sugars, no sweeteners, just like Brightline eating. So that was my first step into that world. And I lost 60 pounds and I got pregnant. But then after I got pregnant, I was like, oh, I don't have to care about what I eat anymore. I all gained a lot of the weight back. Then I worked to get some of the weight off. Then I got pregnant again. And then I gained almost all of the weight back again up to my heaviest. So from there, it was more yo-yoing, trying different programs. COVID hit, and actually before COVID hit, I was in a Bible study with some friends, and they were the first people I ever opened up to about what it feels like in my brain, like what it like day to day, like the craziness. And I just was sitting there crying, like, and they're both very slender and like 1, 2, 3 on the susceptibility score. So they were like, yeah, that sounds like torture. And I was like, you're right. It is. It feels like torture.
Yeah.
And they validated that for me. Like, yes, Linnea, that's not normal. The rest, not everybody in the world goes through all that crazy, never being able to stop thinking about food. Did I eat too much? Do I need to eat more? I'm eating food when when can I get my next food? Lying, stealing, cheating my way to food. So one of them introduced me to Brightline Eating. They knew about it through their work because they were a social media manager for this guy that lost 150 pounds who ran a blog. He's not in the program anymore, unfortunately, but so I heard about it through her. I looked it up and it freaked me out. I thought it was way too restrictive. I read all of the reviews. It said all the icky reviews, and I was like, no, thanks. The pandemic hit and I was like focusing on my health. I was a school nurse at the time. I'm a nurse. And I left the hospital to go to school nursing. It was a great mom gig, home in the summer with my kids, off on winter break, all of those things. But then the pandemic hit. So that first year I was home with my kids doing work from home. And I was like, I can focus on myself. And it wasn't working. It wasn't working because emotional eating and and food addiction just is addiction, right? So I saw a friend be very successful on intuitive eating. And I thought, I've done it all. I'll try that. I got the book. I read it in the first chapter that said food addiction is not real. And I stopped reading and I was just like perplexed by that, because even though I'd never really heard anybody talk about or food addiction, I knew in my gut, in my heart of hearts, that this had to be an addiction. Like this has to be what people feel like when they're addicted to drugs or alcohol. So I was a little taken back by that, but I was like, I'm going to give it a try because I'm a really good rule follower. So if you put some rules in front of me, I'm going to
Oh,
follow.
right. That's
Right.
right.
Intuitive eating, I was
Amen
like,
and amen.
I'll do
Yep.
all the things. Probably why I'm very successful in bright line
Yep.
eating. I just follow the
Amen.
rules. I'm a rule follower.
That's right.
So I did intuitive eating. I did everything they said. I did all the practicing and I gained 30 pounds in a month and a half. And I just felt so defeated and it felt so extreme. I was like, I am living in extreme situations. My brain is under extreme stress. I'm willing to try something extreme. Now I honestly don't feel like bright line eating is extreme. It's peaceful. It's simple. But I dove into bright line eating with the 14-day challenge. Only cost $15 at the time. This was back in the day when they had the challenge. All I did the challenge. I binged all the content in one night, started the next day, and then never touched a nightly eating thing for about 6 months. But I stayed with all my 4 lines bright, and then I finally discovered like, oh, there's this amazing community. And then I dove in. I finally read the book like 6 months later.
Wow.
Oh,
That's
And from that
impressive. I had no
day,
idea.
November 9th, isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. November 9th, 2020 was my day one. And I like begrudgingly the night before, I was like, oh, I probably should take it before pictures, but I've taken so many before pictures. I walked in my son's room. He was asleep. I flipped the light on. He didn't wake up. His room was the only room with a full length mirror, because why would I want to see full length Linnea? And I snapped a picture and that was it. And then I went to bed and I woke up and I thought, I'm going to give it a try. And here we are. Let me see.
Oh, wow.
1,244 days later.
Wait, one more time, because you broke up a little bit. 1,000.
1,244 days later. Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm actually coming up on day 500, so I thought that was
Yay!
yeah, I know. I was like, oh gosh, like it's
I'm
kind
all
of
about the milestones.
Yeah,
I
me
celebrate
too.
them all. I think they're amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's so great. I think that's amazing. I think, I mean, we could have a full discussion about food addiction, obviously, like that's,
Right.
what this is all about. But yeah, about being validated in your validating your food addiction, but understand what I'm saying? Like it's real. Like, I think that's the hardest thing, when you come to it, is because it's like, you've got to eat. Like, I remember Bonnie used to say, I'm going to speak for Bonnie since she's not here today, but
Yeah,
like Bonnie
she's
used to
sick.
say this. Yeah, Bonnie is not feeling well, so that's why we don't have Bonnie with us today. But Bonnie used to say all the time, it's like, alcoholics can stop drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
Drug addicts can stop, taking drugs. Food addicts, we can't stop eating. But
Yeah.
the reality is, and I don't know how you, like, where you line up in all this, but like, I've kind of realized through all this that like I am a highly processed food addict. Like, the processing of the food is what I'm addicted to, because I always say, like, I won't binge on carrots because I won't do it. Like, I just won't do it. Like, but I know there are people in our community that will, so I don't want to negate the fact that is
Right.
like, that's a thing. But
Yeah.
I can cut out highly processed foods and be very successful on BLE, as I have been, because it's abstinence is really what is keeping my sanity. And I get that that's not the same for anybody, but just like having this language to talk about addiction, and like it's real, and like being validated within this this larger community, I think is really important. So I think that's really awesome that you found that. So go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about, right, the why intuitive eating didn't work for you from your view.
Yeah, for sure. So I think intuitive eating is wonderful. Like, it can be very healthy. It can be a great program, a great way of living around food for a chunk of people, right?
Right.
Like, it's estimated that a third-ish of people are food addicts, but then there's 2/3 of the people out there that aren't and
Right.
need a healthy way to eat, right? So for
Right.
me as a food addict, they talked about the first step is practicing eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. My hunger and full cues are completely broken, completely broken. I don't know when I'm hungry or full. I think I'm always hungry and it always feels like an emergency, which it's not, right? And I never feel full until I'm like, feel like I'm going to burst. And then I still feel like I need to eat to soothe that discomfort. So, I mean, I tried really hard, but then, and at some point I didn't feel like I ever really got past that. But then the next step is saying no restriction. If you have a certain, do you guys say NMF stuff on here?
Whatever. Like, I mean, people, we talk about food. Yeah, we do.
Okay. So like if Oreo is your binge food, then keep Oreos in the house because then you eat them when you want and you'll eventually get like sick of them. Like that's the whole concept.
What? Yeah. No, never.
And like,
no,
yes,
never.
like if you restrict, that's the issue. And I was like, okay, but that didn't work for me because for one, it didn't matter, but also I have no one food. I would be happy to binge on anything, including carrots.
Yeah. And let's talk about the rule of thirds really quick. I just wanted to interject because like I think the rule of thirds is really important. And I don't know that we've actually talked about that on the podcast. Like so even Susan talks about this. And so in the medical community, the health community, gosh, I wish Bonnie was here, but Linnea, you could probably offer your expertise to this. They generally talk about like things like it's, you know, everybody falls into like a third of the population. So a third is this way, a third is this way, a third is this way, right? So the rule of thirds around food addiction and like, you know, the susceptibility scale that we talk about here in Bright Line Eating is broken into the rule of thirds too. You know, if you have a lower score, there's a low susceptibility, there's a medium susceptibility, and a high susceptibility. So you have these three buckets. And so you said earlier, and I just wanted to point this out, you were talking about like 2/3 of our society, the, you know, the culture we live in, don't have this high susceptibility. Now, if you fall in the middle, you know, you could be high or low either way, right? But like there are a third of the people, you know, at least that live in our culture that don't really think about food at all. And Susan Pierce Thompson talks about this like a lot in her book. Like she talks about the fact that there are people like, I mean, I think that she's got some celebrity people that she references that like just don't have food thoughts at all. So when we talk about like there are other healthy ways for people to eat, like BLE is not for everyone. And like if we talk about the rule of thirds, it's probably just a third of us that need it. Like it's probably not even half. Like let's be honest. But you know, 33% of the population needing something means it's important.
A lot of people.
That's statistically significant.
Yes. Yeah.
Nerd out.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I just wanted to bring that out because we were talking about that and how you said like, because we'll get to this a little bit later on, but like what Linnea does now is, you know, is health coaching. And so that's, you know, it's important to understand that like not everybody needs BLE the way that people who are high susceptibility food addicts need BLE. And so you know, you might be listening to us and like, what the heck are you talking about? But that's because you're a two.
True.
Right.
But see, and there's two steps to it. There's two steps to
I'm
it
kidding.
because it's a third of people need it, but it's only going to work if you desperately want it.
True.
Yeah.
Right. Like
100%.
I heard someone say this once in the community and it's like BLE is not for people who need it, for people who want it. Because especially like with my health coaching, I mean, after I work with someone, I know if this would be a good program for them or not. And that's not for everybody, but it's like, if they're not willing, then it would be miserable. And so people have to kind of get to that point where they're ready to surrender and kind of voice the fact that there's addiction and that they're ready to recover.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit more about your BLE journey before we get on to like what you're doing now. Tell us what your community support looks like, because I think, you know, and, you know, we as a, you know, collective, Robin, Bonnie, and I know that community support is vital. And, you know, I attribute my success in this program to the support that I've gained. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So like I said, I hadn't read the book. I wasn't in the program. I mean, I was just flying solo for quite some time at the beginning of my journey. But I found this world of Instagram. I went on Instagram and I made my goal was just to have like a visual food diary, take pictures of my food.
Healthy looks good on you. Just so everybody knows, that's her handle.
Healthy looks good on you.
That's it.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So if you're ever interested in learning about what your like characteristic attributes are. There's this free test you can take called via.org, I think it is, via character strengths.
Okay.
And my number one character strength is appreciation of beauty and excellence. And so like things around me like have to be beautiful and pretty and pristine and in line to make me like not feel like I'm crawling out of my skin. So like making my bright food look pretty has always been a goal. Like I love it. Like so I don't eat food that's not pretty. That's fine. But like if I can make my food look pretty, like I'm extra excited about it. So that was my whole goal. Like I'm gonna start like making my food look pretty and take a picture and post it on Instagram just for my own
and her
support,
Instagram,
right?
Instagram is beautiful. It's gorgeous.
And I've gotten a little bit away of like the food pictures because I 3.5 years in, I've got gut issues and I kind of eat the same thing over and over, and it's not as pretty. But if you
that's what I tell
scroll
people all
way
the
back,
time. People ask me for pictures of my food. I'm like, I eat the same thing every day. You really want to see the same thing every day? Like,
Right.
no, nobody wants to see that.
yeah, right. So I've gotten a little bit away from that. Every once in a while, I'll post if it's really pretty, I'll post it because it makes me happy.
Yes.
Yeah. So I found this community on Instagram of other Brightline eaters who did the same thing, and we kind of like found each other. And I mean, now 3.5 years later, there's only maybe 2 or 3 of us still there from when I started, but it's grown and flourished. People come and people go, and we have this vibrant Bailey #BaileyGraham fam. If you want to join us. I found my closest friend. She lives in Canada. We've met twice in person in the last 2 years. We're in a mastermind group together. So like this whole like finding friends on Instagram, like I never thought I would be a person that found friends online. And I'm a firm believer that it's possible and real true friendships can come from online. And so I started building my community myself through social media. But then once the like golden ticket week and they changed the membership thing so you could just kind of come in, I got into the membership. And so like my community has definitely evolved over time. So now it is robust. I have multiple buddies. I heavily use Marco Polo for my communication with Brightline Eaters because I'm a busy full-time working mom. And so you can like connect face to face with people on your own time. I love it. I'm a big fan of Marco Polo. So I have multiple buddies. I have a mastermind group. I have a specific buddy that I'm going through a course with that I talk to every day, and we work through the course together. And I still very much consider the Bailey Graham fam a huge part of my community because I know people have been following my story for years. And if I broke my lines, I would go and tell them. And so that's like this, they're holding me. Like I feel very, very accountable to this.
That's why I post on Instagram.
Followers.
Yes.
So and I share it, like I'll go on if I'm having a hard day and share, like I don't save it just for rainbows and sunshine. And I just know that I'm supported and held there. And so and I go on the AMAC daily. I listen to the PMAC recordings daily. I listen to the Fifth Brightline calls. And to me, those feel like going to AA meetings. Like you just
so let's say real quick, just so people know who are not in the community, AMAC and PMAC. Yeah. AM accountability call, AMAC. PM accountability call, PMAC. That's what we call them just for short. That's our, because we love a good acronym
meetings here. We do a lot of acronyms. 30-minute meetings with a Brightline Eating coach. You can get on, celebrate successes, ask questions, get coaching if you're in the ditch or going through something. I get coaching at least once a month. That's our limit. But even if I'm not getting coaching myself, just hearing other people in the community just feels like, yep, I'm not in this alone. We're all doing this together. It's another day. We can do this. So my community is pretty robust, and I like it that way.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that community, obviously, I also think community is really important. So I think that in the support that we gain inside the membership and outside the membership too. And I've talked about this a lot. A lot of what Linnea is talking about is stuff that's inside the paid membership, which is totally awesome and cool. And if you can afford it and that's a thing that you can do, more power to you. But there is also support outside the membership, just so everybody knows. And I always tell people, contact me. I'll get you hooked up with any of that. So next,
and that's how I started. I've lived both lives, right? Like I started my own support community on Instagram. Just read the book, did that, right? Like I've seen both worlds, and both are great. I definitely have a preference, and if you want to know, ask, and I'll share my whys. But it's possible both ways.
For sure. And there's lots of people that live outside the membership and are successful at this, and have successful. People all the time they ask me, how much does it cost? And I'm like, well, you can check the book out for free from the library. So that's how much it costs.
Yeah.
Like it's a library card, which most people can get that for free. So
Mhm.
I'll take it, the library card. Okay, so what surprised you most about BLE?
How simple it is. Like I was expecting it to be, because I've read all the reviews and it seems so extreme. And it's like, it's extreme because our food culture in this society has become extreme. I truly think that
Oh, that's a
we
great.
see BLE as extreme because we're living in a different extreme and this is more normal. Like
Mhm.
only eating certain quantities, not overeating our food, only eating at meal times and eating robust amounts of varied fruits and vegetables in all of the food groups, like without the chemicalized, processed, ultra processed, created in a lab instead of grown outside. Like
Mhm.
that's the extreme. This society of the standard American diet that is spread across the world is extreme and obnoxious. And we now, as bright line eaters, are living this more normal, simple way of eating. And until you get into it and see that, we have it flip-flopped in our heads. So that surprised me was when I got into this world, realizing what I was doing before was extreme, putting like things that weren't even food in my body nonstop and wondering why my body was always asking for more because they were completely void of nutrients of any sort, but completely chocked full of calories. Like, no wonder we're all fat, sick, and unwell.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, for sure. What can you do now that you never thought you could? I love this answer.
Fit into a size small.
I just bought
I
size small
legit,
shorts. When you read that, I was like, I just bought size small shorts for the first time in my entire life. I'm wearing a size small, and I was like, yes,
I thought I was big
Wow.
boned. I thought I was a heavy person. I thought when I
yeah,
get to my right size body, I'll still be like a size 10. I legitimately thought that. And then when I bought my first 8, I was like, what just happened? And then I bought my first 6. I was like,
Mhm.
what just happened? And then I bought a size 4. And I was like, and you grab the pants that are a size 4 and you're like, there's no
baby
freaking way.
pants,
But
baby pants.
I, these would fit my daughter.
That's
And
right.
then I put them on and they fit. And I'm like, Twilight Zone. And I mean, there's definitely some body dysmorphia stuff going on, right? And that's
Yeah.
just how it is when you've lived most of your life
Yeah,
heavy and obese. Like, but that surprised me. It
yeah,
legitimately surprised me. I thought I would be a size 8, 10 medium at my right size.
yeah,
Mhm.
And now I'm a 4, sometimes 6, depending on, the brand, and usually a size small, sometimes a medium because, clothing sizes.
right.
Yeah.
But that shocked me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I don't know if you want to answer this question or not, but you can if you want. How has being bright impacted other parts of your life other than your body and health?
I have a hard time with this one
Yeah,
because
me and you both, sister.
mainly because like I'm pretty chipper because I love talking bright line eating.
Mhm.
But the last 2 years have been like 2 years of struggle.
Mm,
And I hear so many people in the community talk about how like their depression is gone and they're a better mom and they just live in the world better because of all this peace. And even though I have peace around my food and my body is healthy, those other things haven't happened to me.
mm,
I still have raging depression and anxiety. I still struggle with my momming with some, family stuff that we have going on with one of my kiddos. And I feel like the answer should be life is rainbows and sunshine, and it's not.
yeah,
And but that's okay because I've got lots of years to live. I'm in therapy, which is wonderful. I recommend therapy to everybody, right? Like we all have stuff to work through. And even though I have peace around my food and my weight, I don't have a lot of peace in other areas of my life. And that just makes me sad to say because I
yeah.
feel like it should be the thing that's like fixes everything, but
Well,
that's not real life.
Oh,
So
okay.
should, right?
You want to, yeah. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Robin. You
you
go
just
first and
good.
then I'll go.
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, you just should it all over yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because it is that struggle
Yeah.
that yes, for a lot of people, I think, making those weight changes releases certain things in them, and they are able to process, past issues and move forward. But I think it's also some of that journey can bring up other issues that were shoved down.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about when you're
Right.
done, Robin.
But it's also not the magic panacea for fixing anxiety and depression, right?
Right.
That some of that is simply, biochemical, that isn't necessarily going to be, rainbows and unicorns. And so I so appreciate you normalizing that for other people that might be out there going, well, but I thought this was my biggest struggle and that everything else would go away. And it's like, nope, that's not always how that works.
Yeah.
I
And
still
think
feel wonderful doing it because now I can handle all this hard stuff without having to deal with the food chatter at the same time. So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, and what I was going to say is I think that where I have come in, now my 1.5 year journey on BLE is that I have realized that I was numbing so heavily with food before that I didn't even realize all of the ick, that was going on in my life, that now it's like and like the fog lifted and it's clear as day. And, I think the thing that I take away from all of it is that, now I number one, I have to address all this because I can't numb out with food anymore. Like, I just don't have the option to, and that's where I live in my bright identity. I do not have the option anymore to numb out with food. So sometimes does that come up in a transfer addiction? Well, sometimes it does. Yes. Shopping is I have a problem, but reality is that I get to experience life in the full spectrum now, which I didn't get to do before because I was numbing out with food. And I think that if there's any consolation prize, that the lows suck and they're bad and they're worse than they ever were before. 100% I will agree with you. But the highs are also super awesome now. And they are, and not that we live on a roller coaster up down all the time, but I can feel joy and I can feel happiness in a way that I have never been able to feel it before. Because when we numb out, and we talked about this when we were doing our IFS episodes that have just recently come out, like when you numb out, you numb everything, good and bad. You don't just get to numb the bad, even though that's what you're trying to do, obviously, with the food, but that's not what happens. Not everything gets numbed. So I agree with Robin. I appreciate you normalizing the fact that like BLE doesn't solve all your problems, and sometimes it makes new ones.
Yes.
Or that really, like, it reveals problems that you didn't realize you had. Maybe that's a better way to say it than makes new ones. It's not making new problems, but it opens up the world to like, okay, there's stuff going on that I wasn't addressing because I was numbing out, and now I'm not doing that anymore. So now I get to address it.
And doesn't that make even more sense, right? Once those things maybe bubble up and come to the surface, to say, no wonder I was using food, right? No wonder, because my brain knew all of this was underneath here.
There's a whole episode there. There
could be like 4 episodes there.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
Yeah, probably. We'll talk about that for years to come, I'm sure. But I think it's important. I think it's really important to normalize the fact that, yes. And Bonnie has talked about this, and I, maybe I've said it too. It's like, I'm in a right size body now, and it's like, it doesn't, and I know that we talk about this in the program. I hear the coaches talk about it. Susan talks about it. Like, it's like, this doesn't solve all life's issues. Like, it's not like all skinny people aren't happy. Like, that's not what happens. Like, I still have issues. I still have life. Life is still what it is. Now I just don't have to stress about my health anymore, which is, my why is like, I was going to die if I didn't change the way I ate. So like, for me, it's like, I had to do it for my health, but it's like, I don't have to stress about that part of my life anymore. Now I get to focus on the other things. So yeah. And speaking of focusing on the other things, I know that you've talked a lot about this in the public space on Instagram, Linnea, but like, I know that you have come upon some health challenges as you've gone through your BLE journey. So I'd love for you to talk about that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so increasing, I think it was the increase of fiber, right? Fiber is good. We need fiber, but I had this hidden gut health issues that when I increased my fiber, they came to a head. And you know what? I did well for the first, my year of weight loss went really well without any real issues. It's once I hit maintenance and just like my body was kind of getting like figuring out, like letting the ripples settle and just kind of evening out that I started having really intense gut symptoms. Lots of bloating, like gas pains and flatulence, chronic diarrhea. I mean, just lots and lots of discomfort. And it was right when I started working for the functional medicine doctor I work for. So I'm a functional medicine nurse and health coach in a small clinic with an MD. And she was like, I think you've got SIBO. And so we did the test and there it was, raging SIBO. And so for a year, SIBO was it's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So real quick, you're supposed to have, your microbiome in your large intestines, but when it's imbalanced, they grow up into your small intestines, and your small intestines is not meant to expand and contract with gas like your large colon is. And that's what the microbiome eats our fiber and produces gas. Like that's their job. And then they do hormone balances. They're amazing. They're great little guys we're supposed to have in a symbiotic relationship with us. But they were in the wrong part of my intestines, causing all of these symptoms. So it was a year journey of changing my food to what's called low FODMAP, so removing lots of food I usually loved because I was whole food plant-based for a long time. Had to remove beans, which was heartbreaking, and bring back meat, which, we do what we have to do for our health, even though I didn't like it. It took a year to clear it. I cleared it. I finally started feeling better. And then it was like 2 months later, massive gut symptoms came back. And I was like, what? And I was negative for SIBO. And I was like, what is going on? My body hates me. Like, this is rough. So then, most recently, I was just in November of last year. So like 5 months ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune inflammatory bowel disease called collagenous colitis. So I think it's always just kind of been there because when you have a big
Bonnie is missing the best discussion
right,
ever
I
know. She's gonna listen and be like, darn it. It's okay, Bonnie. We love you.
I know,
you,
geeking out of the medical stuff. It's my favorite.
I know.
Yeah, so like having this makes you more susceptible to other gastric things like SIBO or IBS and stuff. So this was probably always under the surface, and then everything. We found the SIBO first, so we treated it, but then here it was. So that's been a big constant struggle with because if I were to eat differently than bright line eating, I could maybe feel a little better, but like I still eat bright line eating. I still fall, but I have to adjust. Like sometimes I go, and if anybody does bright line eating, you know how much vegetables we eat, but vegetables are one of the worst things for my gut when I'm in a flare. And so like I go to a no vegetable plan every once in a while if I'm in a severe flare to kind of give my gut a rest from managing all that fiber. But I had a really hard time with that at first, but then I got coached on it. It's like, remember your fault. There's 4 bright lines. No sugar, no flour, meals and quantities. Vegetables are on that,
right. And I want to say, because the next question is about whether you've ever had a slip. And so if you want to just meld this together, because I think it's really interesting, this discussion, because I've actually, there's a lot of stuff that's been popping up in the computer community lately. It's like, am I still bright if? And so it's like, I want you to, if you can talk about that, like, are you still bright if you have to go off your food plan or change your food plan because of a health issue? So go ahead.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll have to, like, when a flare comes, it comes hard and fast. And so like, I might have to change my food plan in the middle of the day and to like more like a breakfast. So meat, sweet potatoes, and banana. That's my,
and we write our food down at night, and that's part of the program. Is that writing your food down at night?
It's not one of the 4 lines.
It's not one of the. It's not for sure.
It's
but
crucial.
I know that a lot of people get squirrely in their head about it because they're like, but I wrote my food down, so therefore if I don't follow my food, I'm not bright. And I want people to hear what Linnea is saying is that writing your food down is not one of the 4 lines.
There's a great blog from Susan called Sane Swaps. or sane choices, right? So like if your broccoli is slimy, throw it away and get another vegetable. Like if all of a sudden your kids like broke their arm and you're in the ER and you need to drive through Chipotle and get an on-plan meal that way. And like there's moments in life that it's okay to make the same swaps. And if you really feel icky about it, you commit it at the moment to someone you trust, right? Like, so no, I say I've never broken my lines. I have, in the midst of these big swings of my food, I have stayed no sugar. I have stayed no flour. I have measured everything I've put in my mouth, and it's been within 3 meals. And sometimes, even though like the meals thing, like I've had to like decrease my quantities, so then make 4 meals. I still call that bright. And I had to get coaching around that because your gut, as a rule follower, my gut is like,
me too.
Following the plan or I'm not.
Me too.
But like, I've learned over my 3.5 years that like that's what's not sustainable, being rigid. Now I will say that when I do a lot of flip-flopping, it does make me a little more squirrely. I might have been having some great peace, and then if I have to switch a lot, it makes me a little squirrely because I do like automaticity. I do like following the rules. But my health and not being in the bathroom 15 times a day takes precedence. And I actually was invited to Michigan's Brightest Conference last year, 2023 or 2022. I don't remember which year it was. And I did a whole talk on how we can stay bright in the midst of medical challenges. And it was really cool to talk about this, right? Because it's like medical stuff comes up, or those that have diabetes and have a low blood sugar and have to treat it. Like that's medicine.
I think it's like getting sick. Like a lot of people like, what do I do if I get sick? And I'm like, well, there's advice, there's a plan, there's whatever. And it's like, I've been sick a couple times on, BLE. And it's like, you've got to pivot in that moment because in order to make this sustainable for a lifetime, you cannot be that rigid. I mean, I think there is some rigidity, obviously, that helps us keep our lines. I am also a rule follower. I know that doesn't look like it, but I am a rule follower 100%. And that's why I do really well, because it's like, you give me the rules, you hand me the set of, rules. I can follow that. Absolutely. I can do it. But it's like in those moments of like, okay, yes, the broccoli's bad, or, like I'm dealing with the kids and I don't have time, to do this, that, or the other, or something happened. Like, what do I do? What do I do? So I love it. Thank you so much. Because I think that that's really important, especially because I know a lot of people look up to you in the community, Linnea, as a bright shining star. And I think that it is important for people to hear that, like, considering yourself bright is really something that, number one is it's a personal decision as far as like what you choose for your own, what you choose for your own program. Like, cause some people do more meals than 3 meals a day, right? Like some people choose to do that. Some people choose to do less. But it's about the integrity of your own program. It's not about comparatively like what you're doing with somebody else. So I do appreciate that. Okay, so do you have an EAP, and what is on your EAP?
Yes, I have an EAP, and I teach EAPs to all of my health coaching clients, even if they're on Brightline Eating or not. I do. I think it's such an amazing tool. Like, and you can use it for anything, right? Like you could have an EAP for food thoughts. You could, if we're coaching through like sleep or stress, like you can use
anxiety. Yep.
I love it. I love it. Yes. So my EAP number 1 and number 2 are for sure are big glass of water and say a prayer. Those are my 2 like quick, and like even if I'm in the car, I can't grab a glass of water, but I can always say a prayer and do a couple of deep breaths. So a couple of deep breaths, prayer, water. Those are like my go-to, quick, easy, can do them almost anywhere. Then my next one is actually newer. It's only been established in my EAP for the last like month, and it's a game changer. For me, walking outside, and I started this when it was cold here in Iowa, and getting that change of temperature on my skin, but just like feeling fresh air on my skin and finding the sunshine and just standing outside, my eyes closed, like noticing fresh air and sunshine on my skin. That has been like the biggest thing for me. I just like that change of location, the change of sensation. That's been one of my big ones. And then I go to community. So usually that's in 2 ways. Sometimes I get on my Instagram and do a story and just verbalize it. But most of the time I go to my mastermind group, and we have 2 Marco Polo chats. One that's just like chatting about life and how things are going, and oh, guess what just happened? And then we have an emergency one. So if you see the emergency one, seriously, guys, and it's like it's set up with that, like the emojis with the lights flashing and stuff.
Oh, I love it.
So if I see, because if I see like on my watch or my phone that someone's Marco Poloing me, I often don't go to it right away, right? Like I'm busy, I'll get to it when I get to it. But if I see the emergency one go, I'm looking at it immediately because someone is struggling. Or if I get on there, someone's going to look at it fast.
Okay,
And so
guys,
that was something.
I just, all the ideas, like we got to have, everybody's got to have an emergency one. You got to have an emergency one. We're all going to set up emergency Marco
Seriously.
Polos today.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. Even if it's just with one other person, right?
Sure,
Like
for sure,
have
yeah.
2 Marco Polo groups with them,
Yes.
labeled emergencies, so they know
Yes.
if they see it, you get on right away and just offer that
Oh,
support. You know
awesome.
someone's going to be there. So
I
and,
love it. What a
and I
great-
use it the
yeah.
most.
I don't think it matters who uses it the most. I think it's a brilliant idea because I will agree.
Yes.
Like we can get polo fatigue. Like let's be
Yes.
honest.
Yes.
And like we'll just be like, oh, something like and I'm on a bunch of Marco Polos too. So it's like, oh, somebody's poloing. I'll get to it later, right?
Yep.
And
Right.
then like I mean I know I've seen like stuff's happened in my mastermind group before, and it was like a day later, and I was like, well, crap! Like somebody should have sent a text or something. I didn't realize that it was something I needed to listen to right away, and I think that is such a brilliant idea and going to be a huge takeaway. Thank you.
And it was my idea, so I'm
course it
pretty
was.
proud of that. Pretty proud of that. And it's
Yes.
worked beautifully. It's worked beautifully. Like all of us have used it. Like it's just nice to know that people know, like, I need to pay attention to this one because we want to support each other in the moment when it's happening.
Yes.
But we can't just be at everyone's beck and call every single day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's nice boundaries. Yeah.
That's great. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's what a takeaway. I love that takeaway. Okay. If you could say one thing to your former self when you were thinking about getting on BLE, but wasn't ready yet, what would you say?
Well, I would say that the people that gave negative reviews and said it promotes eating disorders and it's dangerous, I'd say they didn't try it. They don't actually know. And just because you're starting doesn't mean you have to finish. So give it a try. And that first step is really scary, but all the next steps are much, much better. Like just take slow, simple steps and do it for today, tomorrow. If you think it's doing bad stuff, then you can leave. There's no one's forcing you to do this. It's worth trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Just try.
And then a real quick fun question before we get into future, we're going to talk about future stuff or current and future stuff. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be an elementary school teacher when I was a kid. And then
That's cute.
what's funny is that when I was in like, I think my sophomore year of high school, I came home one day, I was like, Mom, I'm going to be a nurse. And she was like, what? I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to be a teacher. I don't want to take my schoolwork, like my work home and grade papers. That sounds awful. I think I'd rather just be a nurse. And from there on, it was just like, Linnea's going to be a nurse. I went to nursing school. I became a nurse. I'm a nurse. Like, it was just, I just decided, and that was it. I have a lot of nurses in my family. So, like my both my grandmas, I have multiple aunts and stuff. So I'd always seen it. And my mom jokes because when I was in first grade, she went to a conference for me, and the teacher goes, I'm not sure how she does it, but no matter what we're talking about at circle time, Linnea can always, always, always connect it to the last episode of Rescue 911 she watched.
I love it.
So I've always had medical stuff in me. And now, like, I'm a nurse health coach. So I went and did extra schooling to become a health coach. So I'm living my high school dream of being a nurse.
That's awesome. And that's, the last thing that we want to talk about today is really like, if, the question is like, what's the next chapter of your life look like? But I really want to talk about, I know that you do the functional medicine. That's important, but I also know that you're very passionate about healthy eating for families. And I think that's, I know we've done a lot of talking, but I really want to hear you talk about that because obviously as a mom of 2 kids, like it's important. And I just want to start the conversation by saying like, and Linnea and I have talked about this a little bit previously, is that like, it is really hard when you have this health journey for yourself. You have already instilled habits in your kids. My oldest child is 9. So pulling the rug out from under a kid at 9 is hard when it comes to the food they eat. And I will tell you, there's NMF all over my house that my kids eat. And I know that it's not good for them. But how do you, what do I, like, Linnea, help me. What do I do now? What do I do now that I've started down this road with my kids and I want to get in a better place with them. So
Yeah.
I know you have
And
ideas.
I do. I have so many ideas. And it's ultimately like my next stage in life is I'm working on creating a program, like modules and action steps and like things to help health conscious moms remove ultra processed food from their kids' lives, because it's a step-by-step process. It is not an easy feat. It is challenging and hard. And it's like, we need the community around it, right? Like other moms that get it. And yeah, our children, their bodies. I mean, think of like a lot of searching on our own and realizing all of this nutrition impact, and many of us in Bright Line Eating or on a health journey have done all this realization about what ultra processed food is, sugar, all of these things that we're putting in our bodies. And then we like think about our little tiny kids and their little bodies and like what they're receiving, and their body's trying to grow and their cells are constantly replicating, and the fuel that they're doing that with is all of this not food, right? So yeah, so what my family looks like, we have absolutely zero sugar in this house, none. Now they eat treats when they go to school, when they go to birthday parties, but it's not in our house. It's not something that they eat day after day after day. That did take some time, right? We weaned things out, and one of my best recommendations is and I guess I should say the other thing we do is we don't snack. We have no snacks in this house unless there's an extenuating circumstance. We're going to a holiday party and it's going to be a really late dinner. Well, then we'll have a snack. But when it comes to it, there was actually a study done on like children in, I think, US versus France, and French kids don't ever snack and US kids do, and the weight discrepancy between US and French kids.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find it. Maybe you can put it in the show notes or something.
Absolutely.
But like kids don't need, once you get past the little age where they do need small amounts of food very frequently, like developmentally they do. I noticed I just intuitively stopped doing that with my kids when my youngest was in preschool, because if she snacked, she wouldn't eat supper. And I was like, well, I'd rather have her have supper food than snack food.
Right.
So we just cut out snacking. And so my kids just know they get 3 meals a day. They eat breakfast and then they play and experience life. And it doesn't matter, like food will come, we'll have lunch at our regular lunchtime, go play. They don't even ask anymore. They're constantly asking for food when they're used to having that cue rewarded, right? So kids can learn and their bodies do just fine. And my kids eat robust amount of food at mealtime because they're hungry. And so they eat all of this wonderful food. And so cutting out snacks, and that's a huge part of our standard American ultra processed food, right? So if we remove snack food from our house first and just even keeping the ultra processed food for meal times, that's a good step, like doing one thing at a time. The other thing then is you could do it the other way and remove all the ultra processed foods, let them snack as much as they want, but they get to choose apples and carrots and nuts and olives, and start like, making choices based on the food that's in the house. It's hard to do both of those at the same time. It's hard to just strip the ultra processed food and say, do not snack. It's not great. And that's too hard.
But it's I think about the trauma. Like that's what I think about, because like I don't want to ensue trauma upon my children, because I have, and I'm not gonna even go there. Like,
food trauma, because we don't want to instill these things. So
no, and I don't want them to have food issues like I do. Like I want them to have a normal relationship with food, and it's like, how do I ensure that
a lot of teaching? Yeah, it's a lot of education, like actually reading the ingredients together. Like how many of these things do we have in a like cabinet? Like even looking, like if you get a box of like, if you have a thing of cinnamon rolls, you guys always like, it's always been a tradition to have cinnamon rolls for Sunday breakfast or something. All right, let's get it out. Let's see, can we find all of these ingredients? And so then you go get the bag of flour and you get the bag of sugar and you get the, vanilla extract. But then there's all of these other big words and you try and pronounce them together. And it's like, what is that? And maybe if you're like 9 years old and they're like a science kid, you even Google it and find out what it is. And it's like, ooh, let's see if we can make something that uses real food to make our bodies grow a little better, because we don't need all these extra things. So sometimes it's going into the details of, let's read the ingredients together. Food dyes are a big thing, cutting back on food dyes and like showing what they do and how they make our brains feel wonky because it's a chemical going in our body. Like you would never ever drink a cleaning chemical or other chemicals around, like, and these are chemicals that are in our food. So sometimes it's education, and it's baby stepping, tiptoeing. Maybe it's removing one ultra processed snack and replacing it with another, right? Maybe it's instead of goldfish crackers, you bring in like freeze-dried apples or like dried mango or something like that that's still really palatable and enjoyable, and say like, let's try it. The first thing I did with my kids, when I started this with them, was said, I think, how old were they? 5 and 7 or 4 and 6. And I said, I think I've got an experiment for us. And we made it a big deal. And we got down with the family. I said, we're going to try going a whole week with no sugar and see if we can do it. And so like we like made it a big deal. We marked it off on the calendar, and then we had like a family party at the end. And they were like super into it. They're like, someone had sugar at school and I didn't because we're having it. Like, and then afterwards we had sugar. Like, so it was not like sugar is bad, but it's like, we're going to try and see what it feels like. What other foods can we eat? Like, oh, that food has sugar, so let's find something else. What could we eat? So there's lots of different ways you can tackle it. And it's very personalized based on what your kids eat and what they do, but it's possible. And it takes, here's the thing, to get from eating all ultra processed foods to a kid eating almost all in your house whole real foods is going to take probably 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Can we just like pause real quick? Pause.
That's the thing.
2 years. I know, but it's like, and I think the problem is like for us, and like you, I mean, I know you understand this because you went through this journey too. Like for me, it was like one day I was eating, poop.
We can do that. We can just rip the Band-Aid off.
I was eating poop one day, and then I was, the next day I was eating whole, whole unprocessed foods, because that, like I can make that choice for myself and I can overcome the trauma and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, I can't do that for my kids because I know that will cause trauma for them, especially when we said up until this point, all this food is okay. You can eat whatever you want to eat. And I will tell you this, like I've even started, like my 9-year-old, there's been some conversations about good and bad food. And I'm like, I just don't want that. I don't want him to have that in his mind. Like, I want him to just be healthy about food. And so I love the fact that you said that like 2 years, like, I mean, that just like, it's like relief, like off my shoulders, like, okay, I don't have to do it overnight. It's fine. Like, it's fine. And
one of the other pieces, when you said the whole bad, good thing, what we say in our family is, this food helps our body grow. This food just tastes good.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help our body. It doesn't do anything for our body. It just tastes good. But these foods help our body grow. Like, and so like, there's that distinction, like we need to make sure our body's growing. And then there's these other palatable foods that taste good, right? Like, so it's not like bad or good, but like growth. But yes, the 1 to 2 years, some could do it in 1, but 2 years, like it takes so much time going slow and just.
Well, and I think with my 4-year-old, I think that it would be easier and quicker. Yeah, because I think like changing his food, I mean, he doesn't make a lot of decisions around his food. He might say he wants something, but like besides that, it's like I give him the food that he eats. Whereas my 9-year-old, he is like, no, I want this food. I'm craving this food. I can verbalize and like, have some ideology about what I want to eat and how I want to eat it. So it's like, how do I do that in a gentle way, in a kind way, and in a non-traumaful way, so that he can also be the healthiest version of himself. And I don't feel like my kids are unhealthy. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I just know based on what's happened with my health, and like, I mean, like, let's talk clinically. I went from 9.6 A1C, type 2 diabetic, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, to like, I'm like normal labs, healthy, let's not talk about healthy BMI because that number just drives me insane. But, like normal, healthy, bright body, no health issues. And it was the food. It was all the food. It was all about what I was putting in my mouth. And so I didn't start exercising until 2024. And I started my journey in 2022. And all my labs were normalized within 9 months of doing that without any exercise at all. So I just want to put that out there. Like, this is what we're talking about. It's the food we eat that's making us sick. Yes. And I've been doing that to my kids, and there's guilt around that too,
And you know, the one thing I forgot to say too, one of the things I recommend the most is just start adding, right? Like, don't worry about taking away, like add in, like if your kids don't eat vegetables, like being okay with throwing vegetables away is one of the hardest things that I did that I found success with my kids now, like vegetables, is that there was vegetables on their plate every single lunch and every single dinner, and they might not have eaten them, but it's kind of like that. We're okay with some waste, but not okay with others. And as long as it was okay, sometimes I would put it in the fridge and I would have it the next day, right? Like, but sometimes it goes in but when our kids are playing with paper and coloring, that's wasting paper, right? It just goes in the trash. When they cut out a star and you throw away the scraps, and it's okay. So like just adding in, like they're not going to be used to eating vegetables unless they see it day and after day after day after day. And that's why I say it takes like 2 years. And I think there's a bell curve when it comes to age, right? The younger, like 2 to 3 year olds, like it's going to take less time. And as they get older, it takes more time because that like 8 to 12-year-old, like they're independent, they know what they want. And then when they get a little bit older, there's a little bit more reason. You can talk to them about the science, and there's more understanding about like the biology of things. So I do think there's a bell curve on how long it takes. And wherever your kids are at on that, it's like if they're up at that 8, 9, 10, 11 age, like it's going to be
my life
2
hard,
years.
left, right, and center, right? No, I know. It is what it is. Great. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I just I think that normalizing this conversation, I think having this conversation is really important. There's a lot of moms out there of littles in our community, outside of our community, that are struggling with this. Because I think, you know, like I said before, it's like there's just this idea of like, wow, what have I been doing to my kids? Like, what have I been feeding them? And the reality is that I cannot, even though there is guilt, it's really like I didn't know better. Like, and it's like now that I know better, now I have to, you know, now I have to do better. And so I just, you know, again, Linnea, I know you don't talk about it all the time on your Instagram, but I know you do talk about this sometime on your Instagram. But that's, you know, a way that people can connect with you and, you know, the journey that you're on. She is Healthy Looks Good on You. There's underscores in between each of those words, but Healthy Looks Good on You on Instagram. And yeah, any parting thoughts, Robin? Is there anything you have to say or thoughts about all this?
Well, I'm, you know, in my brain, I'm already like, we need to have you on again and have a full episode around this because Meagan, you know, as you're echoing, this is such a deep issue and it hits on so many levels. The how, the why, the you know, the emotional piece around it as parents of, you know, how do I have these conversations? What do I do and what are the steps?
Yeah. Well, there you go. Linnea, you've been invited back officially. We'll get Bonnie. We'll get Bonnie on next time too, so you guys can nerd out on your medical stuff together.
Yes.
Yep. Well, Linnea, is there anything else you have to say to us today?
Oh, I'm just so thrilled to be here. I love talking bright line eating. It's changed my life. It's my ultimate goal in life to decrease the stigma and increase the awareness around food addiction. And just day after day, like sharing my story. You know, some people do their bright line eating journey and just live their life and don't really talk to the people around. I'm a BLE witnesser. If anybody even asks me a little bit, I'll share.
Evangelist. We're gonna invoke Tony Wade again. That's Tony Wade's word. A blavangelist.
There we go. Okay.
Love it.
Yes, I will. I shout it from the mountaintops. I tell anybody who is willing to listen. It's just my goal to spread the love and share that food addiction is real and recovery is real. So
yeah, for sure. And I think that, you know, those of us that are out on social media, like, I think that that's kind of normally what I feel like that most of us that are part of the BLE community are there for. We're here just so people, there's an awareness, because I had never heard of BLE before Bonnie told me about it. And it's like, it's not like, you know, one of the other, you know, whatever,
everyone's
Noom, Weight Watchers, like Jenny Craig.
Right.
Yeah. But people don't know about BLE. Like they don't know about it. And so, you know, obviously that's also the reason why we do this podcast is because, you know, people, you know, so people can find it. People can hear about it. People can know about it. People can understand it. And people who might be like dancing around, like whether this is a good idea or not, whether this is for me or not, we're hoping that we can get lots of different perspectives. And which is why we're trying to have, you know, guests of different, diversities
Mhm.
on just to talk about, their journey and what that looks like. And I think that, like I said before, your unique perspective as a nurse, as a health coach, and, as a mom of littles is really important because there's a lot of us out there that are, just in the same scenario. So it's great.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
yeah. Oh, good.
Thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening today. And as always, if you have any questions or show ideas, please shoot us an email on the brightlinepodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on any of our socials. Have a beautiful day.